So it comes with a life science minor, essentially. Through my research and education, we also do a lot of cadaveric work, testing, things of that nature.
Have you taken courses in forensic pathology?
I did take a course here in LA, forensic pathology. It's actually offered through Cal State LA prior to my being a professor there. And at the time it was taught by a deputy medical examiner here in Los Angeles.
Do you use that knowledge that you've learned in the work that you do?
I do.
Do you hold any licenses?
I do. I'm a licensed professional engineer, mechanical specifically, in the state of California.
Are you the member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I'm a member of a number of organizations that include the National Society of Professional Engineers, American Academy of Forensic Sciences, Society of Automotive Engineers, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the National Association of Forensic Engineering, through which I'm a certified, board-certified diplomat in forensic engineering, Biomedical Engineering Society.
How about conferences for other experts in the field? Have you been involved in planning and participating?
Yes. For many years I was a co-organizer of the Society of Automotive Engineers World Congress. It's a large conference and expo in Detroit every year. We would have technical sessions on automotive safety and biomechanics, and I co-organized those for about 8 years.
SAE, is that the largest organization for automotive engineers?
Yes.
Just tell us what it is, what it does, and it relates to automotive manufacturers, reconstruction, biomechanics, and such.
Yes, so it's a very broad organization. The largest part of it is automotive. They actually do cover a little aerospace. But it is a large professional organization that is involved in a number of things. One being professional education. Number two, and a large part of what they do, which is publishing of peer-reviewed articles, publishing of books on select topics, hosting conferences, again, more of a kind of ongoing education, but it offers professionals and academics avenues to publish their work through peer-reviewed settings and disseminate that.
These conferences in Detroit, Michigan, the
Yes.
main one?
Yes.
And do people from all over the world come?
Oh, yes.
And give us this idea of the size of where they have this in Michigan and how many people come.
Yeah, it's held downtown next at the Cobo Arena, the Cobo Civic Center. I don't know what they call it now, but it's the largest conference center in downtown Detroit, and it fills it. Yeah.
Like thousands of people?
Thousands of people. It's a week-long conference. It is the largest automotive conference like that for engineers.
Have you published articles, scholarly journals, and presentations at professional meetings in your area of injury biomechanics?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've published on everything from biomechanics of head trauma to biomechanics of how people move in car crashes. We've got a publication we're waiting on right now where we're evaluating the protective nature of a very novel football helmet, so we did a bunch of testing on that. We're also in review on a paper where we're looking at a synthetic femur that can be used in forensic sciences that will fracture like a real human femur, so we did a whole bunch of testing on that to look at fracture nature of the different synthetic bones and things.
When you mentioned testing in the automotive industry, are there certain type of tests that are performed to assess the tolerances of the human body when impacted?
Yes. In the impact and injury biomechanics world, there's a number of activities or professional focuses that people have, and a big part of that is understanding not just how, in other words, the mechanisms by which we sustain mechanical injury to the body, but also how much can a human body take. There are other things that we use that information for example, crash test dummies. Everyone's probably seen those on television. Engineers need tools to design these safety products, and we can't go out and get volunteers to put in cars to crash, and we can't take cadavers and do that. So we have to engineer dummies and other what we call biomechanical surrogates that will respond like a real human that was subject to the same conditions. And so, those are the primary things that the mechanical engineering research is focused on.
These crash tests, they're set up, the dummy, I'm just saying this is not a real person, the dummy is instrumented and the test is run, and is there data that is taken from that and used? Could you explain that?
Yeah, in a crash test dummy, they're not dumb. In the industry, we have a very long name for them. We call them anthropomorphic test devices, ATDs for short. But yes, they're crash test dummies. But they're engineered to be biofidelic, meaning human-like in their response to impacts. They also have a lot of instruments inside the body that tell us information about how they move, what kind of force the body regions felt, and those pieces of information in the automotive world for all the cars we ride in today are used to determine whether or not they're safe for us to ride in, and in a crash, are we going to pass, if you will, the government standards that are based on how much the human body can take in a car crash.
Are these crash tests and data used to determine, for example, how much force it would take to cause someone to break a femur or to have a brain injury or other things? Or is that correlated and published?
Yeah, all of that stuff gets published. There are, different phases of what you described in terms of where we get that information. There's different ways to get to tolerances. One is obviously testing with cadavers or testing even with live people, usually non-injurious type of stuff, but some people are willing to sign up for things. But the crash test dummies and what we do computer simulation-wise in that line of work is to evaluate what kind of loads are happening during these car crashes and kind of compare those to things about what we know about, this type of injury is caused by this mechanism, and so that's how we determine what types of injuries we would expect to see in a car crash based on those information.
You mentioned government standards. What role do crash tests play in government standards which are adopted in the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards?
Correct. FMVSS is the acronym we use for that. So crash testing is still currently the gold standard and the way that automotive manufacturers demonstrate compliance with Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. So the government will audit, meaning they'll go buy cars and they'll crash them, and they'll make sure that everyone is designing the cars to pass those standards. And by pass, what they'll do, among other things, they'll look at the crash test dummy and the instruments and the numbers, the forces and all that, to make sure it's below the tolerance limits that they've set on our behalf. So they bought off on a certain amount of risk for us, but testing is still the primary way they do that, and there's others. There's simulations coming more into play.
And these articles that you publish, have they been peer-reviewed?
Yes.
Tell us what peer-reviewed means.
So if you submit an article for publication in the Journal of Forensic Science, for example, they don't just go take what you submitted and put it in the journal and send it out for everyone to read, like a magazine. They would then send it to experts in the field. They would determine the topical area, and they would select usually 2 to 4 people that are demonstrated experts in that area and send your paper to them. Usually it's all been washed of the names, so there's no bias built into it. And they'll review your work to see if the methods are sound, to see if the conclusions that you've drawn are based or soundly based on the data you're presenting. You're not making any wild claims that you can't support. If they agree with all of that, and usually there's some back and forth, it's very typical, and it usually results in an improved paper at the end. Then and only then, if all the reviewers agree, they will then submit it to be published for other people to read. So it's a way of basically checking to make sure what you're doing is sound and is in line with the industry practice.
In addition to the seminars and presentations you told about in the automotive industry. Have you also done seminars and workshops for the Association of California Criminalists, Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, Los Angeles District Attorney, and the Criminal Justice Institute?
Yes.
I want to talk now about your employment history. Could you tell us the first job that, I guess his first job, what you got out of your studies? Tell us about that.
Yeah, my first full-time job was as a crashworthiness engineer at General Motors in Flint, Michigan.
And what did you do at General Motors? At the time, was General Motors the largest manufacturer in the world?
To my knowledge, yeah.
What year was that?
That would have been 98.
Clearly. So General Motors actually in 1998 was the largest corporation in the world.
I'm not surprised, it was big. Yeah.
Tell us about your work for General Motors.
My role there as a crashworthiness, the full name was Crashworthiness Development Validation Engineer. And my job there was essentially to ensure that we are running all the necessary crash tests and what we called subsystem tests. In other words, not a full vehicle, but we call them sled tests or other tests, to ensure that we're going to meet the government safety standards that we're required, pardon me, to meet. So I was responsible for making sure that the vehicle's instrumented with everything we need, all the materials in the car, the latest, greatest designs, and then I would be responsible for ensuring the crash test was going to be run correctly. So, long story short, I ran a lot of crash tests. Not personally, obviously there's a team of technicians and engineers that do it, but it was my responsibility. And then I was responsible for coordinating with all the design engineers that had a stake in it. There was an engineer for the airbag, the seat belt. I had to explain to them what the data from the crash test meant in terms of how their part was performing and how we might want to change it to improve it. I was an in-house, if you call it, consultant engineer for specifically crashworthiness for the vehicles. That was a Cadillac program.
At some point in time, did you get involved in consulting with lawyers and others in matters?
Yes, after I left General Motors, I was hired full-time in Los Angeles by a forensic engineering accident reconstruction company.
And how long did you work there?
Just shy of 9 years.
And just tell us what kind of work you did there.
Basically forensic investigation in injury biomechanics cases, similar to what my role is in this case. So basically taking my knowledge from my education, my background in crash safety, and investigating real-world crashes, and then educating whoever it might be on the injury biomechanics. It's usually involving parties that are injured or killed, in mostly automotive, but there are other cases as well, non-automotive.
You mentioned that you're a professor at California State University, Los Angeles. How long have you been doing that?
This is my 15th year. We're wrapping up this week.
Tell us about your position, what you are, and what you do.
Well, I'm a full professor now in mechanical engineering. My primary job responsibilities there are teaching undergraduate mechanical engineering courses. I also offer courses in biomechanics. I have a general biomechanics course for engineers. I also have an impact biomechanics course for engineers. So I teach, anywhere from 2 to 4 classes a semester. I also have a research lab where we do impact and injury biomechanics projects with my undergraduate and graduate students. And then there's a small portion of university service on committees.
Are you a tenured full-time professor?
Yes.
How many years total have you been in the field of injury biomechanics?
Approximately 28 years.
How many times have you come to court and qualified as an expert witness?
Physically in a courtroom, this will be my 13th time. Under testimony, 29 times.
Have you ever testified in any case for me or any lawyer in our firm?
Not to my knowledge, no.
What percentage of your cases are for the plaintiff, the person bringing the case, versus the defendant, the people defending the case?
Yeah, so over the last 11 years that I've kept my own records, because I do this part-time for the past 11 years, or excuse me, it's been 15 years now, actually. It's been about 80 to 90% retention by defense attorneys.
And have you been retained in cases involving pedestrians being struck by vehicles?
Yes.
I want to go now to this case.
Okay.
What was your role in this case?
My role was to look at the biomechanics related to injuries sustained by Mark and Jacob Iskander, to identify injury mechanisms based on the evidence, injury findings, and analyze whether those injury mechanisms are present in an impact by Mrs. Grossman's vehicle.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, a lot of review of material. So first thing I do when I take on a case is ask for material. So I've reviewed traffic collision reports, supplements, I've reviewed photographs, all that are provided to me. I've reviewed any testimony given by witnesses. I've reviewed if there's any investigation that's been done to that point and there's reports, I ask for those. I also ask to inspect the vehicle, so I've inspected Ms. Grossman's vehicle and other things like clothing, mobility devices, meaning skateboards, rollerblades.
Did you review the autopsy reports?
I did.
Did you review the photographs taken by the coroner?
I did.
When you get all that material, what is your approach on and your mechanism to review it and give opinions if you can? How do you do that?
Well, first I go through and I look at all the evidence that's been documented in the traffic collision report. I'll go through and look at all of the damage to the vehicle that the report says is involved. I'll then go and inspect it myself if it's available. For me, in what I do with injury biomechanics, I'm particularly interested in analyzing the injuries and seeing what can be gleaned from the injuries, specifically injury mechanisms. When I see a broken bone, what is it telling me about the likely way or possible ways that that bone was broken, kind of generically at first. Then you've got to put that in the context of the evidence that you're looking at as well. There's also, typically in cases I'm involved in, there's also an accident reconstruction engineer. So just to be clear, that's not what I am, an accident reconstruction engineer. So because I focus on the injury biomechanics, there's usually an accident reconstruction engineer assigned on a case, if it's an automotive case, who will deal with a more broad view of the case, the vehicle movements. There's other evidence that they would analyze that is not within my area of expertise. For example, security footage is a common thing these days. Doing vehicle dynamics analysis and all those things. But I will confer with them on their findings to verify things such as interpretation of the black box information on the vehicle. Could it be relied on? I can read the EDR, the black box, which I did, but I also will check with them to see, okay, is there anything that I should be aware of?
And is there an accident reconstruction expert that you conferred with in this case?
There was.
And what is him or her name?
Renee Castaneda.
Did you prepare a presentation in this case that includes the evidence you reviewed, your analysis and opinions?
I did.
In the presentation, are there some photographs that are graphic?
There are.
And why do you need to use those photographs to express your opinions in this case?
Well, let me first preface this by saying that I am putting this together. I am sensitive to the fact that these are troubling photos to look at. And so I try to include images, not necessarily photographs. For example, we have CTs that I can reconstruct and we can see. But it's important for us to look at some of the details, I think, of the injuries in order for me to explain why I think the injuries happened in a certain way. And that can be tough to understand if you don't see the physical image of what I'm describing to you. So I've tried to not overdo it with the images, but I think some of these are important to what I'm trying to describe, in my opinion. So that's why I've included them. And to the extent possible, I've used radiological imaging rather than, photographs from an autopsy, which in and of themselves sometimes are not great to show you the physical injuries inside the body.
Do you use the photographs as physical evidence to show, for example, where one of the decedents was contacted and actual physical evidence is left on their body?
Yes,
And did you do that in this case?
yes.
Was there clear witness marks, physical evidence on the bodies indicating that they were struck by Ms. Grossman's vehicle?
Yes, in my opinion, there are.
All right, so I'm going to mark Exhibit 298, and we're going to go through your analysis, all right?
Okay.
So let's go to the first page. Keep going, next page. Next page. All right, is this basic information that you used in this case?
Yes, it is.
Just tell us what it is.
So this is just extracted information from the traffic collision report. And what I'm doing is just showing you essentially, I reviewed this material and I pulled some information from it to kind of walk down the path of this is the process by which I'm looking through material and what information I'm extracting. So this just tells me that this is a vehicle versus pedestrian, pedestrian's case, when it happened, the location, and also who are the key people involved in the case that I've got listed here.
All right. So you didn't do any analysis of Mr. Erickson's vehicles, did you?
No, I was provided some photographs of an inspection of his vehicle, but I didn't personally inspect his vehicle.
Okay. And you have no opinions about Mr. Erickson's involvement in this case?
No.
Okay. I want to go next and just show a diagram that was prepared. Is this the diagram from the scene?
It is. It's not a diagram I prepared. Again, it was included in the traffic collision report. And this just gave me initially what the police investigation found in terms of directions of travel of the involved parties. This is kind of a common thing you see in traffic collision reports.
I want to show you next is an evidence marking exhibit. It's been shown. Deputy Mejia Legend. Can you tell us what your understanding of this is?
Yes, oftentimes in traffic collision reports, if there's evidence left on the roadway, they'll go ahead and mark them. And that's what you're seeing here is the marked evidence on the roadway.
Okay. Did you use the police report supplemental to just get the distance of where these pieces of evidence were located?
Yeah, rough approximation. They do include distances on those. The distances are an important part of the accident reconstruction, and Mr. Castaneda would take these and go ahead and put these in CAD and put them in a very detailed drawing. That's not something I personally did. For me, it orients me what things are that are marked in the report. I want to know, okay, what are all these things on the road? And so that's what this diagram was telling me.
What was your understanding of how far Mark Iskander was from the crosswalk where it was measured?
I believe the police measured him at a roughly 254 feet.
What kind of impact would it take to launch somebody 254 feet?
Well, a very high speed impact. I'll just tell you, I didn't do throw calculations as part of my work on this. That will be done by an accident reconstruction here in the case.
That would be Mr. Castaneda's field.
Castaneda would be the one who would do that. He'll plot out all of that, and that's based on what his full analysis of where he thinks everything comes together. The impact, does it verify the collision report? But I can tell you, I do look at throw analysis. There are a lot of engineering papers that have been published and on how far does a human body get thrown, and the police or investigators oftentimes will try to extract a speed from that. And I have seen that as part of the report, but,
Yeah, but you didn't do that.
I didn't do that, and I would defer to Castaneda on that.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to the markings of the evidence. This is page 7. This was your understanding prepared by the police at the scene.
Yes, with one addition by myself. The actual evidence numbers are within those kind of circles that are really small. And I typed larger numbers next to them so you could visually see the evidence marking number. So those numbers I added, but they're reflective of what is in the circles.
Okay. Did you then go through the scene, take some photographs and orient yourself to key things at the scene?
I did.
All right, let's look first at 298-8, and this, what are you showing here?
So the next series of photographs I did not take, they were provided to me, are just, walking from the crosswalk down the road, be westbound, down Triumpho, and from an overhead view, looking at the evidence markings that were in that list that we just saw.
Okay.
And so if I might use my pointer?
Sure.
Is that, okay, so when I say crosswalk, sorry, it's
I don't know
reflecting.
if it works on that screen.
Yeah, it
You
won't.
could,
Okay.
if the judge allows you.
There, he'll give you
Is
a
a
pointer.
physical,
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
oh, okay. May I, Jeff?
Please.
So I just wanted to point out that the crosswalk here just obviously means the crosswalk is down this orientation. It'll be that situation for the remainder of the photograph. So this is moving down the road this way.
Okay, let's go to the next one. You can just stand there for a second, we'll get through the photos quick. Okay, what do we see in here, 298-9?
So here we see marking one labeled white plastic bumper piece, and this is labeled 2, vehicle clear plastic debris.
Let's go to the next one, 298-10.
Okay, so we're back up above again. Again, here is number 1, which is white plastic bumper piece. This is vehicle clear plastic debris. 2, 3, vehicle chrome light cover. And we're just moving down the road. Number 4, vehicle license plate frame piece, child's white sock, and then vehicle Mercedes-Benz emblem.
Okay, we're gonna go to number 11, 290-11, and just a close-up of the frame of the license and the white sock. Is that what we're seeing?
Yes, just a close-up.
Let's go to the next, 298-12.
So here again is the Mercedes-Benz emblem. 7 is the vehicle chrome fog light cover, so that's a different label than previously. Vehicle license plate frame, there's an unmarked circle there. And then up above, 2 skateboard wheels.
So, go back 1 second, please. Where that license plate and up to the skateboard, how far away from the crosswalk is that?
Oh, I couldn't cite to the distance off the top of my head.
Mr. Castaneda would be the one to ask
Oh,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah, and it's been measured in there.
Okay, let's go to the next one then, 12, oh, 13, I'm sorry.
Okay, so picking up again from 2 skateboard wheels, we continue down the road, we see the skateboard deck debris, which if you're not familiar with that term deck, that's essentially part of the physical board itself. 2 skateboard wheels. Now we're over here, this is the median dividing the lane of travel here on Triumpho. And then additional skateboard deck debris further down the road.
Okay, let's go to the next one, 14. It shows similar.
Again, that's
All right,
the
let's
deck.
go to the next one, 15.
This doesn't have any new evidence on it, it's just moving down the road.
Let's go.
Okay, continuing on down the road now, we have the Saddle Mountain Road sign, which is a point of reference, as you'll see coming up.
All right, let's go to the next one. And
Um,
what does it mean when it says, that's 17, Mark's point of rest?
Yeah, so this is where Mark came to rest. In other words, this is where his body was after the incident. This is where it was located.
And let's go to the next one, it's 18.
This is a photograph I was provided from the night of the incident, and this shows you that Saddle Mountain Road sign. And then you can see here, this area here where there's a lot of people, this is what I call the point of rest or area of rest of Mark. And then there's an arrow pointing back towards the crosswalk area, which is down here. And down in this area is where Jacob came to rest.
From that point where Mark's point of rest there on Exhibit 18, Is Miss Grossman's vehicle further down the street away from the crosswalk from there?
Yes.
All right, let's go to, did you do an inspection of Miss Grossman's vehicle and the data related to it?
Yes.
Why was that?
Well, it's important to not only look at all the photographs of the vehicle that were taken, and so you'll see some photographs that were provided to me, but also for me to, I want to see the vehicle too firsthand if it's available.
Let's go to page 20. Is this just the basic information that you received?
Yes, this is just provided to me in a report, so I've just taken a cutout to put up here. This is called an event, this is called actually an EDR report. This is, layman's terms, you know, we have a black box on the vehicle. This is a report of what we call an imaging of that black box.
All right, the next page is the EDR recorded data. And why did you put impact 73-117? Why did you do that?
The first column is time. Time 0 represents what you would call the impact time. So the EDR will record up to 5 seconds, in this case, prior to that impact point. And so it'll record to a buffer, but it saves backwards 5 seconds from the time of impact. And the time of impact would be indicated by time 0. So in this case, the second column would be the recorded speed by the vehicle in those 5 seconds leading up to and at the impact.
Okay. Do we next have photographs of Miss Grossman's vehicle?
Yes?
Okay, where, this is, you say night of the collision. Can you go back there, Your Honor, to point that out? Can you go down there?
Yes, please.
Oh,
All right, so just explain what's so significant in this picture.
well, from this photograph, I can see that there appears to be 2 areas of damage to the vehicle. One being, you know, pretty center line of the vehicle here. There's obviously some damage here and to the grill and down here, but then there's also damage over here to the passenger side corner of the vehicle. And,
Let's
there's
go
also,
to the next picture. Let's focus in now on the missing white bumper piece. Can you explain that?
yeah, this, obviously we're looking at the passenger side front kind of bumper area, fender area here, and there appears to be a piece that's broken off of here. I noted that because I did notice in the evidence on the roadway there were certain pieces documented, and I noticed a correlation between what I was seeing missing off of the vehicle and what they had documented along the roadway.
Let's go to the next picture.
This is a close-up photograph taken of that corner area.
Okay, next, this is a vehicle taken at a inspection facility, this photograph.
Yes, not by myself, again provided to me.
And what was significant to you in that picture?
Well, it's a little dark up here, but again, it shows there's 2 missing Mercedes-Benz emblems. There's 2 Mercedes-Benz emblems found on the roadway.
All right, let's go to
Seem to
the next
correlate.
photograph. That's 26, and that's taken on October 6, 2020 by LASD. Can you explain that? What's significant?
Sure. Well, number one, it's a little brighter, so we can see the damage more clear to the front here. And I circled some areas where it's not, there's more areas, but I've circled some areas here where there's some damage. There's damage to the scallop grill pattern here. There's missing emblem. This is hanging out of the emblem. You've got fractured and missing pieces of the license plate covered here. There's pieces on the roadway that seems to correlate with those missing pieces. And general damage to the front.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is as close up now. Can you explain that?
Again, these are areas of damage that I've noted. So there's damage to the passenger side headlight assembly. There's some scuff marks, witness marks. There's damage here to the trim. It's a little hard to tell, but there's a black molded piece that's been pulled off of this and folded backwards with a lot of scrapes on it. And also some damage to the panel there.
All right, next
Behind the
is
wheel.
28.
This is that molding that I had mentioned was hard to see, and you can see there's some scuffing on that.
Let's go to 29.
Trying to show you a better look of the headlight assembly damage. This is the right front passenger assembly. The clear plastic is broken and missing off of it, and then there's more coming here.
And you can see more, let's see number 30, that shows better.
Yeah, you know, this here actually is the driver's side, and I included this to do a comparative, so you can see, if you're not familiar with the vehicle, okay, what does it look like undamaged on the driver's side? So obviously there's a clear plastic over the whole thing. And within the assembly, there's two lights, two lenses here, and there's some chrome trim here within this assembly. There's a larger, what I call outer chrome trim, and then an inner chrome trim for each lens. I have a better picture coming up.
Let's see the next one, 31.
All right, so here's my attempt to label these. I labeled the larger trim that goes all the way around each as the outer chrome trim. And then there's a smaller chrome trim that goes right around the lens. And there's two for each. So this is the undamaged driver's side.
Okay, let's go to the next 32.
Now let's go back to the passenger side and take another look at this light to see if we can get a better idea of what was damaged.
Let's go to the next 33.
So this is zoomed in, and the outer piece here, the outer chrome for the outboard headlight is missing a piece. We're going to zoom in, but the inner chrome trim on the outboard lens here is missing. It also appeared to be missing here. Here you see the intact larger chrome trim on the inboard side, but this is showing two missing inners and then a partial outer.
Okay,
And I think I even have a better,
so did you review the evidence log that we talked about earlier?
yes,
Did you note there was like a note of, I think it was number 8, 7, fog lamp, something like that? Is that it? Fog lamp? Fog cover. Did you review that?
yeah, there were two chrome trim. One was chrome trim fog light cover. It was number
And-
7, I believe.
Do you know where that came from?
It's my belief it came from this headlight assembly.
Please explain how.
Well, it's damaged and missing off of this vehicle. So there's, again, if we go forward, I have a better view
Let's
of
go
this.
to the next picture, side-by-side comparison.
So what I saw in the photographs, passenger side on the left side of the screen, driver's side on the right side of the screen, you can see here the chrome trim on the lens here around the lens. This is the inboard lamp. This is the passenger side. You can see that is missing. If we go to the next slide, this is the outboard lamp on the driver's side. Here's the chrome trim, and then here it's missing on the passenger side as well. And then it's kind of hard to tell, but here you see that the larger chrome trim that goes around all of that is fractured here, and this part over here is missing. So the vehicle here is missing, it appears to be missing two smaller chrome trim pieces that go around the light of the lens, and then a partial chrome trim that goes around the whole kind of light assembly there.
Did you see any evidence in this case to suggest that the foam fog light cover was from any vehicle other than Mrs. Grossman's?
I did not. It seemed consistent with what I was seeing in the damaged photographs. You know, the photograph from the scene is what it is, but to me, it was all consistent.
Did you see any evidence whatsoever in this case and all the work you did that any vehicle other than Mrs. Grossman's Mercedes-Benz AMG struck the two boys?
No.
All right, let's go to the next one. It'll be 36. Okay, so now this is now your inspection?
This is my
All right, I'm
inspection.
going to just walk through this quickly. You've seen this. Just tell us the significance of the first page, 37. Next. There we go.
So this is just an overall picture as I saw the vehicle. So you can see there's things that have been removed from the vehicle, again, which is why it's important I ask for all the photos as early as they were taken.
All right, let's go to the next one, 39,
Again, just another overall of the front.
okay, 40,
Here's a straight-on shot from the front. We've added some tape measures just to give some dimensions to it so we can start to see heights and where things are relative to the vehicle.
what are we seeing here, number 40?
I also was given an opportunity to inspect the headlight assembly. It was already removed. I did not remove it. This was held in evidence, so I went to see it.
Next photograph, number 41, what is that?
That is the grille from Mrs. Grossman's vehicle. Again, it was removed prior to my involvement. It was provided for inspection, though.
Okay, later on, are we going to see some photographs that you believe are significant related to the grill?
Yes.
And what will we see?
We're going to see this pattern, this scalloped pattern from the grill appear on one of the boys' bodies.
Let's go to 42. Is this your tape measure there? What are you doing?
Yes, so this is a photograph taken not by myself, but prior to my involvement. But this is a piece that I saw in person that was removed by parties prior to me and stored in physical evidence. So what you're seeing here is a piece that was taken off of the passenger side bumper area here, and you can see here's that piece that we had noted earlier was missing from that part of the bumper. That's this piece we're talking about here. So this section was taken off
All right,
prior
let's-
to my
Let's go to the
inspection.
next picture and just quickly tell us what that is.
That's a license plate frame from Ms. Grossman's vehicle.
Okay, why don't you take your seat, and why don't you tell us what your summary of the vehicle damage was?
So based on my review of the photographs and inspection and evidence, the damage was localized to two main areas on the vehicle. The center line, or just about 5 inches to the driver's side of center line, there's an area of damage. And then on the passenger side, right front corner of the vehicle, the headlight assembly and that bumper area and around the corner on the fender side, those are two distinct areas of damage.
Second, next page, the final opinion.
Again, looking at the damage, I also noted that the vehicle debris that was marked on the roadway appeared to correlate with the damage and missing pieces that I saw from the Grossman vehicle.
Okay, I want to show now the mobility devices. Okay, you don't have to get up, just you can explain it, so try to move through this. All right. First, 47, what are we looking at here?
Skateboard, marked skateboard?
Does that appear to you to be in a number of pieces?
Yes, it was.
And do you know how that happened?
I can't say specifically how that happened, but it looks to me like it was run over, but
Does that
that's,
look like a...
skateboarding is not.
Does that look like a skateboard that somebody was riding? Oh, withdraw that question. Can you ride a skateboard like that?
No, I don't think you would be able to.
So is it your opinion in this case that happened as a result of the impact?
Yes.
Somehow. All right. Let's go to the next one. What do we see here?
This is another photo of the skateboard, but just what they call the trucks. I was getting a height measurement on it.
All right, next. 49.
This is the right rollerblade boot, Jacob's right rollerblade boot. This is the outboard side, or the right side of the right boot.
So next is the same thing. Just,
Correct, it's just the inboard side.
how about number 51?
That's the actual rollerblade portion of it, right rollerblade.
Okay, the next one that you say composite right roller skate, what does that mean?
That just means I'm putting those two pieces together just to show you these are from the same boot.
When they were found, were they together?
No, they were separated and it's broken.
Do you have an opinion as to what caused the right roller skate to break apart?
Well, it can't be, you can't ride it like that, so I believe it happened at some point during the incident, during the accident.
All right, let's go to the next one. It's just a no more of the right rollerblade, so it's about 10 inches in height.
Yes, that's the left.
and then the next is the left.
Yeah, these are both left.
All right. Now, did you inspect the clothing
Some of the clothing, yes.
that was maintained?
Yes, whatever was provided and
Why
maintained.
would you inspect the clothing?
Well, I want to see if there's any evidence on the clothing that tells me about contacts, if there's anything transferred that's obvious from the vehicle, things like that. You want to see it if it's there.
All right, let's go to the clothes. 56, what is this?
This is Jacob's shirt. It's been cut and I didn't cut it, it was cut already and it's kind of laid flat. So you're looking at the back side of the shirt and the right and left side all kind of flattened out.
Would it be your assumption that that was cut by the emergency personnel,
Yes, that's my assumption.
not happened in the accident?
Correct.
Let's go to the next one. Same thing. Anything significant here?
Well, yes, this was an area of damage to the shirt that did not appear to be made by human scissors or cutting mechanisms. This appears to be an area with jagged kind of rips on it, which was different than any other area on the shirt. And I noted this to be on the right side of the shirt, at the right lower side of the shirt.
What significance, if any, does that have?
Well, according to the traffic collision report, Jacob and Mark were traversing through the sidewalk towards the north side, which would mean the right side of their body would have been exposed to oncoming traffic, the oncoming vehicle. So I made a note of that because that would be potentially consistent with an impact to the right side of the body.
Let's go to the shorts. We covered it. Let's go to the shorts. 59. These are Jacob's shorts. What significance, if any, did you see there?
I noted some, again, tearing to the shorts around the right pocket area.
What significance, if any, is that?
To me, again, that could be potentially significant to contact with an object from the right side of the body, tearing the clothing.
Let's go now finally to the shoes. 61. And
These-
62, we'll go to that. And just tell us what you found, if anything.
These are Mark's sneakers. I did not really find anything remarkable about the sneakers. Sneakers were not on his feet in the photographs I was provided at his point of rest.
All right, fair enough. Let's go now to the helmet. Was Mark wearing a helmet based on what you learned?
It's my understanding from what I reviewed that he was.
All right, and this is Exhibit 63. This is just the helmet at the point of rest.
I don't know if that's the point of rest.
Point of rest for the helmet.
I don't know if that's the point of rest for the helmet.
Okay.
That's where the helmet was at one point.
Fair
And-
enough. That's where somebody photographed the helmet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go to the next one. And that's,
Here's the helmet again.
you told us here, I assume you're saying that you've made the picture brighter by 83%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the corner picture was much darker.
Yes.
Okay. And what significance, if any, is that?
I noted the helmet in the picture.
Oh, and I see it. All right, let's go to the next one. Mark, the helmet, anything significant?
On this one, I could actually make out the helmet better, and I noted that there appeared to be some damage to the outer shell portion of the helmet. There's an outer shell, and then there's underneath the shell. There's crushable. It's like styrofoam. It's called EPS. Under that, which I didn't see any damage on from this point, but it's very difficult to tell. But this is the best picture I could find of the helmet.
We'll go one more.
That's a close-up view of the same picture.
That's a Schwinn, was that a Schwinn helmet?
Correct.
And that, of course, has to meet government standards and before it can be put on the market.
Yes, it does.
All right. Now, let's talk about the injuries. First, I want to just get to a generic drawing, kind of illustrating anatomical positions, okay? So that'll be Exhibit 68. So, tell us what we see here, please.
Okay. I'm going to be using some terms when I describe movements and in injuries, and regions on the body, and so this is to give you an orientation, crash course in anatomical terminology. Some of these will also appear in the medical examiner's report. We defined locations on the human body anatomically using a standardized set of terms to reference where things are located on the human body. These terms all refer to a particular position, reference position, called the anatomical position, which is what you see this figure in, standing upright facing forward, so you're looking at it from the front, arms to the side. So for example, if something is anterior on the body, it is towards the front of the body as you see it, right? So towards chest, abdomen. If it's posterior, it would be towards the back side of the body. Okay. Superior would be towards the head. Inferior would be towards the feet. Lateral would be away from the midline of the body, towards the outside of the body. And it could be left lateral or it could be right lateral. If something's closer to the midline, to the body, then we call it medial. Okay? The limbs have their own little special terms. Limbs, we use proximal and distal. Proximal means that the location is closer to the trunk or the torso of the body. Distal means that it's further away from the trunk. For example, my wrist is distal to my elbow because it's further away from the trunk of my body than my elbow is. Okay?
All right, I think we covered it. Now, we're gonna get to some of the pictures here, but did you try to put as few pictures as possible? Withdraw that. Were there hundreds and hundreds of photographs of the injuries?
Yeah, I didn't count, but there was probably close to 100.
And have you selected some because they clearly show to you where the injury was and what caused it?
Yes.
And is that going to assist you in giving your opinions and letting the jury understand what happened?
Yes.
Okay. Have you tried to use drawings and x-rays and MRIs to kind of show the areas without showing pictures?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to see a mix of those. So we're going to first go to Mark Iskander, okay? And we're going to talk about Mark. So let's go to the summary of what his injuries were as determined by the coroner. So why don't you just tell us the summary of his injuries?
So this is starting at number 1. Skull fractures were noted. Within the head there was a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is a type of bleed, pneumocephalus, which is related to the brain, mandible fracture. There's actually 2 fractures on the mandible, we'll see. Pulmonary contusions, both sides, which is essentially bruising. If you could go back. One slide, thank you. Bilateral hemothorax, which is bleeding within the chest cavity. T1-2 dislocation. T refers to thoracic spine. So there's a thoracic spine dislocation. We're going to talk about spleen laceration, fractures. So this gives me a list of findings. I do not diagnose or obviously do autopsies. I'm not a medical doctor. So I take this as input as the injuries. And we're going to talk about many of these injuries and the mechanisms. Next slide. So here's an additional breakdown of the injuries. A lot of this is duplicative, but I'll just point out some that we're going to talk a little bit more about. We will talk about some of the abrasions and what I believe to be significance of those, why we want to look at them. The basilar skull hinge fracture is a particular type of skull fracture that we'll see, and that is significant. That is a significant injury. The non-displaced C1 fracture, or we're going to look at a dislocation that is significant biomechanically. Moving down, there's a number of rib fractures we're going to take a look at. Again, the spinal dislocation, which is significant in this case, I think. And then a number of orthopedic fractures to the legs.
Let's go to the next exhibit. This is the anatomical drawing, and what is this showing? This is done by the coroner, Dr. I think he's a Dr. Miller.
Correct. This is common. When I receive autopsies, I'll also get a sketch that the medical examiner's office will prepare, where they will indicate areas on the body. So what you're seeing here,
Well, let me just go to the next one.
yes, please, yeah. Okay.
Is this the summary of the injury diagram we saw?
So I'll take, yes, this I prepared.
Okay, Ted, just give us a summary.
So I put this together in most of the cases I do because I not only want to look at the injuries in terms of list of injuries, but oftentimes I want to put together where they're located on the body, because sometimes you may see patterns appear, visual patterns of where injuries occur on the body. And so I will find this useful sometimes to do that. It's not meant to be an exhaustive summary of everything the medical examiner finds.
All right, we don't have to, we're gonna get through that, we don't have to go through all that. If we go to the next page, is this just your illustration next to the coroner's illustration to show they're the same?
Yes, but his contains abrasion information that I didn't include on mine, otherwise it just gets, it's too much.
All right, let's talk about the skeletal injuries and the significance of that. What is your opinion about the skeletal injuries that Mark suffered and how they were imparted upon you?
In general, I believe they're a result of an impact from a vehicle at high speed from the right side of his body, and then subsequent impact to the ground on the left side of the
How
body.
would you see that playing out?
How would I see it playing out?
In other words, are you saying that he was struck in the head and then fell down and hit the head, or was he struck and then fell down and hit the head, or do you know?
Well, there are some that I do know. There are some that I can't say confidently, whether it was struck from the vehicle or, to the ground. So we're going to go through those in detail.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
76. What is that?
May I approach the screen, Ryder?
Yes.
This is a CT reconstruction.
What's a CT?
This is a three-dimensional X-ray, essentially, that you can compile together into a 3D image. That's the benefit of it. So what you're seeing here are multiple fractures to the left side of the skull. I use arrows to indicate those. So there's a fracture that's coming down here. It bifurcates, comes down, and connects with a large fracture that surrounds essentially the base of the skull here and continues around the other side that we're going to see.
All right, let's go to the next one.
This is just to orient in terms of superficial. So this is why unfortunately I do need to include some of these. I feel if I'm looking at this, I want to see, are there any external signs of trauma to the head in that area as well? And here I know that there was quite a bit of abrasion to the side of the head, and there's some hair that has been removed over here. But this is the region here where you see this fracture.
Okay, let's go to the next one, 78.
This is the base fracture, base of the skull that runs through the occipital region that was noted. It continues around the back side of the skull, continues over to the right side of the skull here, and then dips down and moves into the skull.
Let's go to 79, the basal hinge fracture that you spoke about. Please explain.
This is a top-down view into the skull. The calvarium, which is the top of our skull, has been masked. That means I've taken it and made it visible inside. That's one of the benefits of CT. And it's hard to tell, but the hinge fracture is a what they call quote unquote typical, but it's a fracture that occurs in the skull, and it fractures from one side of the skull through the base of the skull all the way to the other side. And the reason it's called the hinge is because it kind of forms a hinge with the skull. It becomes structurally unsound.
To receive a hinge fracture in the basilar, what is it?
I've heard it both ways.
All right. How about this? Hinge fringe, to suffer a hinge fracture in the skull, what type of force and impact is required?
So it's a significant impact. I can't give you an exact number for two reasons. Number one, I don't know his tolerance. We don't know each other's tolerance, but I will give you scenarios. You see hinge fractures where you see motorcycle crashes, you see people falling from heights, diving injuries, You also see them in high-speed crashes, basilar skull fractures in general. Race car drivers can have them in high-speed crashes. So it's known as a high-energy fracture.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. Mandibular. Tell us about that.
So this is the right mandible, also known as the chin bone, if you will. And there's two fractures that create a floating fragment. So the right portion of his mandible, his chin, has taken a blow, and it has caused a floating fragment from the impact. So that's a significant blow.
All right, let's go to the next one. Same, it's the same,
Same.
same thing, we can move to the next one?
Yes, same.
Same, okay, let's go to the summary then. Next, what is your summary of this?
So what I can tell from that is there was two direct impacts to the head and face, one to the right mandible or jaw region, and also one likely to the left parietal region, which is the region of just above the left ear.
And did you consult some literature, medical peer-reviewed literature in this area?
I did, yes. Basilar skull fracture in particular.
Why did you do that?
It's a challenging injury to identify an impact location responsible for it. And I included some literature just to explain why I can't say confidently which impact is responsible for this basilar hinge fracture.
When you say which, you mean the initial striking by the vehicle or striking the head on the ground?
Correct.
Okay, so let's skip that then, and let's go to the, keep going. Okay, there we go. So now we're on 86. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at an injury to the cervical spine. We're looking at the back side, and if I may approach the screen again.
Yes.
This is the cervical vertebrae number 1, or C1. This is cervical vertebrae number 2, C2. And you'll notice here there's a large space between the two. This is the dislocation that we're talking about. This is an atlantoaxial injury here. So it's essentially kind of been pulled off.
You heard the term flexion, distraction, hyperextension. Have you heard those terms?
Yes.
Would this fall in any of those?
Yes, it would. This type of injury has been associated with hyperflexion, which would be, hyper just means beyond the physiological range, normal range of motion. Flexion, which flexion would be, for example, this would be right flexion, left flexion, forward flexion, or hyperextension. But it's essentially hyper movement of the joint. The fact that you add this distraction to it, we call that tension in engineering. That's where something's pulled apart. When we see compressive neck injuries, we often will see destruction and fractures, multiple fractures through these two types of bones. And we're not seeing that here. You're seeing essentially a pulling off of it.
And would that injury be consistent with a high-speed impact?
Yes, particularly in pedestrian impacts.
Explain.
In a pedestrian impact,
No, go ahead, sir.
in a pedestrian impact, particularly a high severity pedestrian impact, the body very quickly goes from basically no speed or very little speed in the vehicle traction to travel very quickly up to whatever speed that vehicle's traveling. But the vehicle doesn't evenly distribute its force over the entire body. In this case, with kids, it distributes it over the lower parts of the body, anywhere from the torso on down. The head tends to want to stay where it's at. It's called inertia. Maybe you've heard that term before. So everything gets accelerated up, and the head wants to stay behind. So the only reason the head continues with the body is because the neck wants to pull it with the body. But if you have such a severe blow to the body moving it, the neck just can't take the amount of force it takes to pull the head along with it, and it can cause distraction, hyperflexion, hyperextension injuries.
The forces applied to him exceeded the tolerance that the neck at the C1, C2 could take.
Exactly.
So there's nothing he could have done about it.
No.
All right, so is the next one just show the same thing?
Yes.
All right, I don't want to keep going over. How about the next one?
Yes, just a different view,
All
but
right,
yes.
let's go to the summary. Tell us what that, you cite something, I don't know, what is that?
Yeah, I'm just citing some published literature. There's actually a fair amount of literature on these injuries. One is from Pike that basically is a citation for what I just mentioned. The lack of compression fractures tells me that it is more likely than not the tensile loading mechanism that had caused this, and is consistent with the impact configuration we're talking about.
And for example, Mr. McElhaney, he's a leading authority in the field of biomechanics at Duke University. You familiar with him?
Yes, yes. He's retired, but he's a world-renowned expert.
All right, let's go to the next. Is this what you were explaining to us?
These are different ways you can get that type of hyperextension and tension loading in the neck. If I might just quickly, there's a number of ways you can get the same loading in the neck. For example, on this one, the body would be moving and struck in the chin, and it would cause this hyperextension and tension. Wanting to do that, that's one way. Another way is what we call inertial loading, which is just what I've described, where an object comes in, strikes the body, and the head kind of wants to stay behind. Similar chin impact, and this is just a little diagram the authors were using to
Okay.
describe where the forces were focused.
All right, let's go on. You've explained that to us already, right?
Yeah, a particular interest at the C1-2 level, that's where a large amount of our no response comes from. Right here, that's C1-2, because the C2 has a little thing that sticks up called the dens, and C1 and the head rotate about it. So it's particularly susceptible to rotational hypermotion. And so I believe that played a role in this as well.
Let's go to the next. These are the rib fractures, both sides.
But both sides at rib level 1 in particular are of interest.
Why is that of significance?
Rib level 1 actually is kind of tucked underneath your clavicles. You can feel your clavicles here. And these injuries lie basically under your clavicle. So there's essentially two ways that you can get to this fracture. One is if you take an impact directly to the mid-clavicle and fracture the clavicle and then get to the rib. There is a clavicle fracture, but it's not there, it's on the side. The other way is through indirect loading through the muscles of the neck, called the scalene muscles. When you hyperextend or you want to cause traction, pulling the head off, the muscles will fight against that. And they'll want to pull on that rib, and it will fracture it.
Does this exhibit here, 93, show what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Just explain.
It's a fairly flat, broad rib, so if you apply significant lengthening contraction force through those muscles, there have been cases where you do fracture that because of its geometry. So that, to me, again, that adds to this hyperextension, this traction of the neck. This is all part of the same thing.
Are you able to tell whether that injury occurred when he was struck by the vehicle or falling down?
It's my opinion this occurred during striking of the vehicle.
Would the force be more when someone's struck versus when they've fallen and hit?
Depending on the speed of the vehicle, in this case, yes, significantly more.
And as someone falls, the energy that has been imparted starts to dissipate or diminish as you fall. Is that right?
Well, yeah, the big thing with falls is the height of the fall. You know, a lot of times people get caught up with the over the ground speed, but the more concerning part is the height of the fall. You know, the over the ground speed can contribute if you're kind of whipping, but the height of the fall is really where a large, if not most of the energy is coming from. That's why helmets are tested the way they are from 6 feet. It's irrespective of the over the ground speed.
Did you see, I think it was in the autopsy, the height of the boys?
I did, at least from the medical examiner's report.
What was the height?
I believe Mark was measured at around 58 inches, and Jacob was around 53, but they're on my diagram,
So what is 58, you divide that by 12,
just shy of 5 feet.
just shy of 5 feet,
Right.
and his brother would be, what's 5,
4 feet
6,
plus.
7 inches,
4 foot 5. 4.5 feet. Plus the rollerblades and the skateboards.
4.5? Not my 40 speed, his height, 4.4 feet, 5 inches?
Yeah, 48 inches is 4 feet plus, right?
Why don't we take our break?
What's that? Take a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Did not talk about the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Melcher is the president. You may be seated. Please continue.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to go to 298, 96, talking about the thoracic spine dislocation. Why don't you, as he's getting it up there, just tell us about it.
So this injury also falls in this category of distraction injury of the spine. So this is,
Let's go to the next one. I think it gives a better overview. Okay, so C 1 through 7, is that cervical?
yes,
T 1 through 3, it goes more, but that is thoracic.
yes,
And then below that is lumbar,
yes,
and then sacral.
yes.
Okay. So we're talking at the top of the spinal cord now. It begins at C1.
Yes.
Okay, tell us what we're seeing here.
We're seeing at the T2, T3 level, you can see the spine is kind of taking a turn there. That is not normal. The spine has been pulled apart, essentially. It's a distraction injury. Not unlike what we saw at the cervical spine, but this isn't a thoracic spine. There's no compression. I didn't notice any compression, meaning fracture, squishing of the thoracic vertebrae themselves. And this has all the hallmarks of a classic pulled apart,
And what causes that?
high-speed impact from a vehicle.
Let's go to the next one. We talk about this already, Tom?
We did, but it's just a closer up view. In this, I put a little arrow to show you. This is the distraction we're talking about, that red arrow.
And let's go to the next one. Is this kind of how you feel that it happened?
Yes, I've seen this in at least one other case. It's also referenced in the literature, this type of injury. This is similar, like I said, with the neck. The body is being sped up extremely quickly, and the weight of the body that wants to stay behind creates a tensile or stretching between the two parts. And I did a simulation in a prior case, and this individual actually had a T910, and I noticed in the simulation, what you're seeing there is a virtual pedestrian crash test dummy, that you'll see the dummy's torso wanting to stretch off the abdomen and the pelvis as you move to the right side of the image there. And that's what I'm trying to verbally describe to you, is that
Okay, let's go. Just the spinal thoracic cage, we've talked about that, just gives us an illustration.
this is ribs fractured on the left side near the spine so you're looking at a posterior view of the left.
Next page. Same thing.
Same thing.
All right, and to go to the summary. This
So-
is-
So on the left rib fractures, they appear to be oblique, means that they're occurring on angles, and that typically is what you would see for indirect, meaning that the ribs have an ability to kind of compress and bend, and they can fracture not right at the point where the load is applied, but it can actually be a little remote to that because of how the ribs can compress. These, I believe, are more likely than not, these are more remote fractures from an impact to the left side or the posterior left side of the thoracic region.
And in the posterior left side, underneath the ribs, is that where the spleen is located?
Yeah, the spleen's left side between 9 and 10, down a little lower.
And
Protected by the ribs.
Was there any injury to Mark's spleen?
He had a lacerated spleen.
And what would that be indicative of?
That's a blunt impact trauma. The spleen will lacerate because it's filled with fluid, and if you compress it very quickly, the fluid can't move fast enough, so it kind of splits it.
Let's go to the next, right clavicle. You told us a little bit earlier about that in the first rib.
Yeah, you're seeing the arrow pointed, that's the right clavicle, that's actually the lateral portion of it. And this is a direct load path, meaning this is how force transmits from the right side of the body to the left side of the body. We use that in side impact occupant protection in cars. And this is the load path, and you'll see fractures in the clavicle from a lateral impact to the shoulder like this.
All right, let's see the next one. Okay, what is the radius and ulna?
Those are the bones in the lower arm. Both of those were fractured at the same location in terms of its distance.
And that was on the right arm.
That's on the right arm, and it's tough to tell from this reconstruction of the MRIs whether it's complete or incomplete. But what you can tell clearly is that the arm has been bent from outer to inner.
If I'm crossing a street and a car is coming from my right and it strikes me on my right, would that be something that would cause these injuries?
Yes, it can.
So if I got struck on my right side and then I fell down,
Yeah.
if I didn't break those bones in the initial impact, is that going to happen when I fall down?
Well, you can have limb fractures from a ground impact, but these are rather unique, actually. Number one, the exact same hut location for both fractures. Both have the same bending mode, and this is a concentrated bending at that, almost like a corner that the arm is bent over. When you load the arm, if you fall in the arm, you load it like this, you typically get oblique fractures that run a little bit longer. You can have transverse, but this one is rather unique. And this actually, to me, looks like an arm that's been trapped between the front of the vehicle and the side of the body. And as you bend over the hood of the car, you actually bend the lower arm over and it snaps, which is what I believe caused this.
Let's see the next one, right? Distal humerus and lower arm. What happened here?
So this is how I believe the arm is fractured, from the blow represented by the arrow there. So you're looking at the outside of the right arm. It's being bent in towards the body. That's coming from the vehicle, and his torso is flexing to the left. So it's a combination of the two things.
I want to mark and show you exhibit 290-150. 298-150. This is not in the PowerPoint, so we'll just switch to that. Okay. What does that show?
This is a picture of Mark from the autopsy from the coroner's office. This shows what are referred to as pattern bruising to the lateral portion of his right thigh and the medial portion of his left thigh down lower there. And those show the same scalloped pattern that we see on the grille of Ms. Grossman's vehicle.
And how about the arm? Do we see the arm injury there?
Yep, we see the arm there, an unnatural curve there. That's where the fracture is. And we also see some bruising on the right side of the torso towards the left side of the picture, if I might just point it.
Yes.
Can you do
Is
that?
that, so what I'm referring to is there's some bruising here and here. When the arm is down, and you have an arm right here, and you have impact to it, you have loading through the arm into the torso in these regions. So I believe these are related to the same impact.
Is there anything that you saw that could cause those patterns on both legs other than the grille on the Mercedes-Benz AMG driven by Mrs. Grossman?
No.
Did you note whether there was damage to the grille on the Mercedes AMG that Mrs. Grossman was driving?
Yes, there was.
Was it consistent with what we see here on the decedent's body?
Yes, I believe it is.
Let's go to the next one, and just a couple more here. This is pelvic fractures. Does it take a lot of force to do that?
Yes, we typically see these in the high-speed crashes we do. For example, governmental crash testing. Those are high-speed crashes. This is, in the biomechanics community, we refer to these as very commonly lateral compression fractures. The pubic rami fractures and the superior and inferior. So these are commonly seen in side impacts. So,
All right, let's go to the next. There were two femur fractures. We just skip that. Go to the next one. This is an MRI or is this CT?
this might be the scout from the CT or just the X-ray. I don't recall, but this is the location of the femur fractures.
They're circled.
Yeah, they're circled.
Okay, let's go to the next. And you have an illustration here. Undeformed, deformed, tension, compression. Could you please explain that, sir? It's exhibit 109, 298, 109.
Yes. I was looking at the right image here, which is the CT reconstruction of his fractured right femur, and noticing the fracture end there, and you can tell that there's a pattern to that. And that's something we study in my lab, and others have as well. You'll see the terms tension and compression. What I'm describing to you there is tension is pulling apart of material, and compression is pushing together of material. You get both of those when you bend a leg or you bend a tube of any kind, but in a femur you see that. So on the left, the illustration is describing if you have a blow to that blue straight tube or, rectangle, and then it bends into that curve shape, the tension side will be on the concave side, or convex side, and the compression will be on the convex. So anyways, that's how I know this femur was broken by a blow from the right side of the femur.
All right, we'll go to the next one, and this just is a, what?
Again, this is me looking at the fracture, looking at what can I get in terms of loading direction from how the pattern is. And again, from what I've seen previously, I believe that this fracture on the left femur was from a blow that came from posterior medially towards the left side of the body.
Let's go to the
So
next one.
consistent with an impact from a vehicle
Okay,
on the right.
you kind of told us these things already.
Yes, all of that is all consistent with an impact to the right side of his body as he's in front of the vehicle.
Let's go to the next one, and again, we see the grill pattern, and I go to the next one quickly here, and is that the grill that you matched up to the body?
Yes.
All right, and let's keep going, we saw that already. Okay, Exhibit 115, you have an illustration and you have some parts of the anatomy, and you have I think it says approximately 5 feet on the top.
Yeah.
Could you explain that, please?
Well, I want to get an idea of where his body landmarks would line up with the front of the vehicle. So that's what you're seeing here is, this is an inspection photograph, but I have a vertical tape measure in the photograph. It's hard to see but on this screen, but there's different colors to it, so I know where 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, all the way up to 5 foot is. And I've marked off the general region where his knee would be, where his pelvis would be, to see where those body parts, if you're in front of the vehicle, would align with on the vehicle.
Okay, let's go to the next one, and we talked about the right arm. Just tell us the significance of this.
In looking at the alignment, it was clear that this damaged portion of the hood, which you're kind of looking down on her vehicle, it's been compressed back towards the occupant compartment and up a little bit. That region where the hood leading edges would be the approximate height of where his hip would be and where the arm would be if you're standing in front of
And
him.
that's consistent with the injury pattern that you saw.
Yes.
Let's go to the next one. Abrasions.
I believe those are bruisings that are as a result of loading through the arm into the torso from the impacting vehicle.
All right, let's go finally to the next one where you kind of illustrate. What are you illustrating here? This is 118, 298.
At the top, you'll see a red curved arrow that I've placed on there, and that's the trajectory or movement pattern relative to the hood of the vehicle you would expect the head to move in this type of impact.
Okay.
So that's where I'm looking for any evidence of, is there any head strikes? You don't have to have a head strike in a pedestrian, especially if it's a high hooded vehicle, but I look there.
Let's go to the next. Is that an impact?
Yes, I believe that it is. It's hard to tell in the picture,
Let's
but
go to
there's
the
a
next
dent right there. It's right where the hood is kind of bent up, which has a tendency to stiffen the area too. But that's right in line where his head is headed.
And if we
It's
look
going.
at the next one, we can see it again. Is that a better
Yes.
picture?
Yes. It's a
Okay.
little towards the passenger side, but that's consistent with having a little bit of forward pre-impact speed by the pedestrian. That's very
Go to the
common.
Next one, and is this illustrating injuries from the hood and the impact of the ground?
Yes, I looked at this quite a lot, and I believe that most likely it was this side of his face, the right side of his face and chin, that would have been presented to the hood. And this on the left, this is a lot of abrasion that I believe is from the roadway. And so that's why I have this most likely hood contact and this most likely from ground contact.
All right, and then finally, this is what you believe was caused by the ground contact?
Correct.
And then the summary, Can you just tell us a summary of the injuries?
So yeah, his right-sided and spinal injuries, I believe, are consistent with coming from a high-speed impact to the right side of his body from Mrs. Grossman's vehicle. And then the injuries on the left side of his body are consistent with secondary contacts with the ground.
Okay, and are all your opinions with respect to Mark Iskander given to a reasonable degree of biomedical and injury biomechanics probabilities?
Yes, they are.
And are your opinions that the only vehicle that struck the boys was Mrs. Grossman's versus, what, I'm talking about, withdraw the question. Is it your opinion that the only vehicle that struck Mark Iskander was Mrs. Grossman's Mercedes AMG?
Yes, all the injuries we've discussed, I believe, are from her vehicle.
Let's go to Jacob. I'll kind of cut it down, so we'll
Yes,
go
sir.
a little faster here. And we're going to do the same thing. So why don't you just walk us through the medical examiner's summary?
So Jacob was documenting he was sustained an atlanto-occipital dislocation. This is going to be similar to the cervical spine injury we talked about with Mark. Also bilateral femur fractures, similar. Also pubic rami fractures. He also sustained a fracture of the sacrum, and then also some hemorrhaging of internal organs.
Okay.
Next slide.
Let's go to the next one. And when we get to the same things, we don't have to go into the same kind of depth. I think
There's going to be a lot of similarity what I've already described, so
Okay,
you can go ahead.
next. This again, the coroner's drawing, illustrating, why does the coroner do that, if you know?
Well, you'd probably ask him, but I would say to document there's two things, to document what they physically see on the body. They will also sometimes put internal, but this is mostly an external, but they'll also document medical intervention artifacts. So sometimes you might have like a bruise pattern on something that's actually from a medical device, or punctures that are from medical intervention that you don't want to confuse with an actual injury.
All right, and then again, on page 129, 298, this is your illustration of the work done by the medical examiner at coroner's office.
Yes.
And just tell us overview of the injuries.
A little less in terms of number of injuries that we saw than we saw with Mark, particularly to the torso region, but similar in terms of lower extremity injuries
Okay.
and cervical spine. But
Let's go to next 130. We covered that.
covered it.
All right. Now, let's look at the abrasion pattern. We're going to see some pictures here. First, this is Jacob. This is Exhibit 131, 298. What's the significance of that?
Jacob had some abrasion to the right hip area that was different than what I saw with Mark. This was a little bit more kind of mottled, or kind of there was a little bit more kind of gouging it, what appeared to it. There's abrasions to the right side of his head, and there's a laceration to the parietal region of his scalp, but there did not appear, according to the medical examiner, there were no fractures underlining those. What do I take from that? If you have abrasions to a head, you want to look beneath that. Was it contact that was severe enough to cause a fracture beneath it, or what's going on? And there are no fractures underneath those contact areas, so it tells me that those are, less severe contacts or potentially grazing type of injuries.
All right. Let's go to the next one. Anything you want to add to that?
Quite a bit of unique abrasion in the right lower leg, in the calf area there, with what appears to be some dark colored black, almost transfer, but if you zoom in, it looks like actually skin that's been kind of friction, pulled from the skin.
All right, I'm going to go to 298, 133. Anything to add with this?
No, this is a fairly nondescript abrasion contusion.
Let's go to the next one, 134. How about that?
This is the abrasion to the right lower leg and knee area I just described that has, some of what appears to be more kind of what black transfer, or what is likely friction burning of the skin.
Okay. Now, did Jacob also have an atlanto-occipital dislocation?
Actually, one level higher, but similar type of injury.
Just explain the difference.
His dislocation was at the base of the skull to C1. Mark's was at C1 to C2. So the skull, you can see there's a large space between C1 and the skull. This is called an atlanto-occipital dislocation. But the mechanism is similar, is what we just described with Mark. This is a distraction injury.
And is that, have you reviewed medical literature and articles that discuss cervical spine injuries with pedestrians struck by vehicles?
Yes, and this one was interesting because they looked actually at children and they found the same type of injury with kids hit by vehicles.
Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the femur fractures. Again, both femurs are fractured. You can see that. Is the femur the strongest body in the bone?
The strongest bone? Yeah. In terms of bending, yeah. In terms of long bones, it is, yeah.
It's the hardest bone to fracture, requires the most force.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
And both of his femurs were fractured.
Yeah.
If we see the next page, the anatomical, that's what happened.
That's what happened. Again, you can see the ends of the fracture, particularly on the right there. It's got a little kind of part that sticks down there. There's kind of a unique pattern there. That one I thought was particularly interesting because we actually recently did testings using synthetic femurs and created the exact pattern when we bent it.
Is that what you call a compound fracture?
No, no. Compound is a term that usually people refer to an open fracture. We used to call it compound, but that would be something that penetrates the skin. A comminuted would be multiple pieces.
I want to show Exhibit 140, and this is
There's a video.
a femur test. Just tell us what this is.
Yeah. Well, it is a video, so you're not going to see much now unless it plays. But this is a bending test we did on a synthetic femur, and it's recorded at 40,000 frames a second to see what happens when the femur fractures. And you'll see the pattern that gets generated. I don't know if we have the ability to play this, but the next image shows you the results of this test. So this is a screenshot. I've turned the bone sideways so that it's oriented the same way as Jacob's femur, and you see the top piece of the bone, and you see the angulation at the fracture on the left, and compare it to the angulation of the fracture on the right. This is a classic bending fracture. This is how I'm looking for tension and compression, which tells me the bending direction. And this one, I just caught my eye because we had recently done this test, and it looks very similar.
All right, next slide. Was back to the femurs. We've discussed this, right?
Right-sided impact to the femur.
All right, let's go to the pelvis.
Similar to Mark, this is a lateral impact injury. What was different is this also included a sacral fracture, which is not uncommon in lateral impacts, even sacral on the opposite side, because the pelvis is a structure. You can disrupt it remote to the side that you're impacted because it is kind of an oval structure. So you can have the contralateral, we call it, injury as well. But this is from a right-sided impact.
I want to show you 298, 144. It has some articles of clothing and a picture. What's the significance of that?
Now this is connecting what we saw earlier with the damage to the shirts, the tearing, and all of that, and the region that corresponds or would correspond to in the hip region here, because the hip, like I said, there's a good abrasion and contusion in that region.
Did you do a comparison to kind of match up Jacob's height comparison to the vehicle?
Yes, similar to Mark.
Is this what you did here?
Yeah, so again,
Tell
I
us what
noted
you did.
two distinct areas, separate areas of contact. We've already talked about Mark, so that leaves this area of contact over here. So I wanted to say, okay, where does that put his hip? And what we see with the abrasions and all of that. And that puts him pretty much right at the height of that assembly, the headlight assembly that we see that has quite a bit of fractured pieces in it.
All right, let's go to the next exhibit, 298, 146.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that?
Well, this is all damage from something being struck right in front of the headlight assembly. And then a little induced damage off to the side of the vehicle, a little bend back there. And the significance of all of this put together is when you have a pedestrian that's struck crossing in front of a vehicle near the edge of a vehicle like this, that results in a certain movement of the body we call the fender vault movement. That means that as the body is moving, going forward and gets struck, you tend to somersault. You don't hit the hood because you kind of have a little forward velocity, and you actually miss the hood and somersault off to the side of the car. All right, so Mark had more of a direct contact with the hood that we saw with the shoulder and the arm and the head. Whereas when you're on the fender side, you're almost past the car. You get hit on the pelvis, and as you start to rotate, you just miss the hood and the side of the fender there. That's called a fender vault pedestrian kinematic.
All right, so, let's see, the next one shows the same thing, right? We covered that?
Yeah, and on this one, based on where I have him, his leg's gonna be down in that area where the piece missing, and you have that trim that appears to have been pushed back in contact with the tire. So something was there that pushed all of that towards the tire,
All right,
which I believe to be a leg.
let's go to your final opinions on Jacob. Why don't you tell us what they are?
So I concluded that Jacob's injuries are consistent with a right-sided impact from the passenger side front corner of Mrs. Grossman's vehicle, and that resulted in a fender vault trajectory of his body, where his head rotated over but missed the hood and what we call the A-pillar, which is next to the windshield, as the body kind of somersaults off to the side, outboard of the passenger side of the vehicle.
Are all the opinions, is there one more page, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, take that down. Are all the opinions you've given here today for Mark and Jacob and the cause of their injuries to a reasonable degree of biomechanical engineering and biomechanical science probability?
Yes.
Is it your opinion that both boys were killed by the vehicle, the Mercedes AMG, being driven by Mrs. Rebecca Grossman on September 29th, 2020?
Yes.
Did that high velocity lead to their deaths?
Yes, velocity is a significant component.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
I just have a few questions. The work that you did when you first started seeing the vehicle, when was that?
I was, let's see, that would have, well, I was retained in, I think, 2023. When I saw the vehicle was sometime after that, 2024 possibly.
Okay, so when you saw the vehicle, you actually saw the actual vehicle parts, not just photos, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and when you saw the vehicle itself, the parts had already been removed that you looked at, correct?
Right, those parts that were laid out separate, that's correct, they were already removed.
Okay, and you don't know what was removed from the front of the Mercedes around the lights, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fair, correct.
Okay. And is it correct that you have not seen the photos of Ms. Grossman's Mercedes as it appeared at the scene after the accident?
I was provided photographs of her vehicle at the scene, when the vehicle was off to the side of the road, some distance from the scene. Her headlights were still on. I think there was probably 10 or fewer than that photographs.
And do you recall from those photographs that the headlights on Ms. Grossman's vehicle at the scene were intact?
No foundation.
Sustain.
The,
I'm sorry.
Don't answer.
Hold on.
Do you have a recollection of the appearance of the headlights at the scene on Ms. Grossman's vehicle?
yes, from those photographs particularly, both headlights appeared to still be operational. They still were on from what I saw in the picture. The passenger side headlight was very difficult to see the damage that you saw in those photographs there. But I believe I saw a fracture of the clear plastic, but you could not see what was happening in terms of chrome trim because of the lights coming out of it.
Now, you talked about the the headlamp assembly that you looked at. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And you also talked about, and you had some photographs and some slides of the evidence as it appeared at the scene. You recall that?
Yes.
And you recall that you had the inventory where you listed, well, not that you listed, strike that. Do you recall that there was an inventory in one of your slides that indicated item number 7 was a chrome fog lamp cover? Do you recall that?
I do.
Okay. And the items that you mentioned that when you were looking at Ms. Grossman's vehicle, that there were some pieces of the light frame that you saw missing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you did not see the chrome fog light assembly on Ms. Grossman's car, is that correct?
But you're right, there's no dedicated fog light. It's a headlight assembly. It has adaptive lights, so it has built-in fog lights.
Her vehicle doesn't have a fog light, is that correct?
It doesn't have a dedicated, old, traditional fog light, as most people think. It's built into the technology of the headlight assembly.
Okay. And when you viewed these pieces of evidence from the vehicle, where did you do that?
I believe they refer to it as this central evidence storage facility with, I believe, the sheriff's department.
So
It's
it
here
was,
in LA.
okay, so inside the sheriff's department, there's an area called the central storage facility, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the official name of it, but
Okay.
that's what comes out.
And in that, was it a big room that had these parts?
This is a warehouse, but I only had access to a very small area when you come in where they set up, they bring in the evidence. They don't let you just run free in there, yeah.
And so who selected the evidence that would be brought into that room for you to look at?
Personnel that work there bring the evidence to a caged area where people like myself are there to inspect the evidence that was asked to be produced for inspection.
So is it correct then that you specifically asked for certain items to be brought to that location so you could inspect it?
The attorney's office is who officially, requests it. But we ask the attorneys to see everything. We want to see this stuff. And we went multiple times to this because we asked for more stuff to be produced.
So was it, just so I understand, was it the case that you asked for, say, for example, 10 items, but you got there and those 10 items weren't there, or you saw the 10 items and wanted to see additional items?
The latter.
The latter, got it, okay. Now, when you viewed the items inside the warehouse, did the items include evidence tags still?
I don't recall if they still had evidence tags, but they were all individually packaged in evidence-style envelopes and labeled. But I don't recall if there was, like hanging tags specifically on them, and I would have to review my photographs to see if they still had them.
Okay. So, in order for you to correlate the evidence that you were viewing to the evidence on the scene, you just had to sort of do it yourself? You couldn't correlate it by numbers, is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. And you mentioned that, and I wrote down, I don't know if it's page 42, you mentioned that part of a bumper had been taken off on the passenger side, and you were viewing that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That was the front bumper of, the passenger side front bumper of Ms. Grossman's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Did you do any kind of DNA testing on that bumper?
I did not.
Did you do any DNA testing on anything?
No, that's not in my area of expertise.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
When you were finished inspecting the items that had been brought to the room in the warehouse for you, when you left the room, were they still there?
Yes, so generally, one piece of evidence was unpackaged at a time. So they were brought in, if it's a box or whatever, and one was taken out, unpacked, first photographed in the package, taken out on the table, and then photographed by whoever was there. That would be repackaged, not by us, it was always by sheriff personnel, put back, and then the next piece was taken out, photographed in the package, taken out, photographed by the experts, and the process repeated. I did not take anything and put anything back. We would not be allowed to do that.
Okay. When you came in the first time, and there were the items that you had initially requested, and you viewed those items, and then you left, the next time you came back to view those additional items you requested, were the original items still there?
I can't say because they bring in items into a caged area per the request from attorneys. So because we went back multiple times, they didn't bring back out evidence that had been part of a prior visit. So it was, every visit it was new evidence brought to that area.
So were you working within the caged area or?
Yes.
Or, yes? Okay. So I'm getting a better picture of it now. So you're saying that there was evidence in the warehouse. You would request specific items, and those items would one at a time be brought to the cage area and opened up for you?
It appears what they did was that, of course, the request went well before we arrived.
Okay.
And when we arrived, sheriff personnel in the warehouse had already apparently gone in the warehouse and collected what they believed we were there to see. And that was brought into the caged area. And so, for example, there was on one occasion there was a box with multiple envelopes with the clothing and shoes. So they collect it, they bring it in to where we are, set it down, and then we individually go through one by one. And then put it back in the box, we leave, and then they refile it or whatever they do.
And then when you come back the next time, those original items are not for you to, they're not in the cage and they're not in the warehouse?
They're not in the cage. I don't know about the warehouse. We're not part of that, part of the process.
Okay.
That would be the sheriff's department's evidence maintenance.
Is that, just for clarity, is that warehouse, is the cage within the warehouse so you can see where all the evidence is, but you're only able to look at what's in the cage?
Correct.
Okay. You testified, Dr. Raymond, that you found no evidence of other vehicles hitting the boys. You recall that?
I do.
Okay. Is it correct that you have not viewed any video surveillance of vehicles that were leaving the scene after the accident?
I did view security camera videos. They were provided to me.
Okay, you did. Okay. Did you review 3 videos?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Okay. And did you do anything with those videos?
Nothing other than viewing them.
Okay. So did those videos provide you with any insight as to your opinions?
No. They're really focus of the accident reconstructionists' work, but I did want to be aware of what they were and what they showed.
And so one of the videos that you viewed, did you view it with the sound on?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the videos that you viewed then do you recall a video where there were two officers sitting in the room looking at a computer screen that was playing the video? You recall that?
I do.
Okay. And you recall, do you recall who those officers were?
No.
Have you heard the name Detective Sheen? Do you know who he is?
I don't.
Did you hear what they said while they were watching the video?
It's hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't recall.
Okay. Deputy Sheen was here in our courtroom and told the jury that he was present watching that video. And during the video, we could see a finger point to a particular object on it. You recall that part?
I remember a finger pointing.
Okay, what do you recall about that finger pointing?
Pointing at a screen because they were doing a video recording of the video playing on the screen.
Right, right. And do you recall, and he was asked, and he said that he did hear the person on the, he did say on the video what he was seeing. Do you recall that?
Section's hearsay was excluded.
When you were watching the video, the one that I'm referring to now, where the two officers there, did you see any cars that appeared to be going around a body?
A body, no, but I did see cars that appeared to be slowing and kind of, at least one I recall, kind of doing a little maneuver, like it was moving around something.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you do any analysis to determine whether any of those cars actually hit the body?
I did look at the abrasions to the body and injuries for evidence of run-over type of injuries. I didn't see anything that I would call a run-over injury. And by run-over injury, I mean, when I see run-over injuries, you typically see patterns. You typically see tire patterns of if you run over a body. Depending on the body region, like a limb, you can see what's called degloving injuries. When tires go over bodies, they tend to pull, and they can pull from the bone as you go over. It depends on the speed, but they're kind of clear when you see them. I didn't see any evidence of that. I didn't see any evidence of, quote unquote, a run-over crushing injury, which I have seen before many times. So I didn't see anything that I recognize as a clear run-over injury.
Okay. Did you do any either analysis, or did you see anything that would suggest to you that if a car had hit the body that was there, that it would have displaced the location of where the body originally was? You understand that?
Can I clarify that?
Yes.
Are you talking about a body that's on the roadway
Yes.
and then a car comes
Yes.
and may displace it?
Yes.
I didn't see anything that I would say is evidence, clear evidence that that occurred.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking, if there was a body on the roadway and another car were to hit it, would it be your expectation that that body's position would be moved from its original spot?
It's foundation.
Sustained.
It's a hypothetical. Let me ask you a hypothetical. I want you to assume that there's an accident and there's a body on the road. And I want you to assume another car comes by and makes contact with that body that's on the road. With that assumption, would it be possible for that body to have been moved after being contacted by the vehicle?
Incomplete hypothetical.
Sustained.
What additional information would you need to know whether in my hypothetical the body could have been moved?
It's the improper question.
Well, you would want to see, I would want to see some evidence in addition to what fits perfectly with a projectile being thrown, hits the ground. Body just doesn't hit the ground and stick, the body hits the ground, there's usually a little tumble and sticks. I would want to see some evidence of contact, like the injuries I was just describing to you. I would want to see some kind of damage. For example, I've seen bodies get run over, they stay right in place. It really depends on the vehicle type. You can imagine vehicles that have trim in the front that goes quite low in the front, to where there's not enough ground clearance. And you could have contact with a body, and that could displace a body. But you would also want to see some kind of evidence from the vehicle that did that. There would be some damage, most likely. So you'd want to see some other evidence of that. What I'm seeing doesn't show any evidence to me that's clear that took place. The evidence I see all fits with what I would expect from a fairly straightforward impact, ground, slight tumble to a stop.
So is it fair to say then if a vehicle came along and hit a body on the road, whether or not that body would be displaced would depend on the vehicle and the spot on the vehicle that made contact with the body?
It would depend on the type of vehicle, the speed of the vehicle, tires on the vehicle, where and how it strikes the body. With the gloving injuries, it happens a lot with people chasing a bus. Stop, I want to get on. And they fall next to the bus, and it'll run over the side of them, and they stay right there. But you'll see clear injuries from the tire. So it really is very vehicle specific and orientation specific, I think, is what would happen.
Dr. Raymond, you testified that you looked at the grill pattern on Mark. Do you recall that?
I did.
Okay. And you said that was the same grill pattern as Ms. Grossman's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If there was another Mercedes, would it, let me ask you this, have you seen pictures of any other Mercedes that have been involved in this case?
Yes.
Have you analyzed the grille pattern of the other Mercedes involved in this case that you've seen?
I wouldn't call it analyze it, but I've seen pictures, yes.
Okay. Did you do any comparison as to whether the grille pattern on the two vehicles was the same or similar?
Well, I did assess those. They're similar. One had no damage, one is significantly damaged.
And the one that had no damage, that was a black Mercedes, is that right?
Yes.
And do you have an understanding as to when that black Mercedes was provided to be inspected?
I don't know the exact date, other than it was sometime after the incident.
Was it, so it would have been sometime after in 2024 when you did the first inspection, is that fair?
I don't know. I didn't have an opportunity to inspect this. I was provided photographs. I think it would have been prior to that, but I don't know the exact date.
Okay. I think you testified, Doctor, that you did not do any throw calculations with regard to Mark. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that also true for Jacob?
Correct.
With regard to Mark, you talked about a left parietal region impact and a right mandible impact. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And do you know whether, I think what you said, and I want to correct it if I'm wrong, is it true that you don't know whether that was as a result of the vehicle contact, or was it the ground contact?
So, yeah, I can clarify where I stand on that. Based on everything I've seen, I believe that more likely than not that the mandible occurred during the initial vehicle impact, and that the subsequent left side is likely ground contact. And that's, that's both sustained blunt trauma to those direct regions, and that's clear. The abrasion patterns over those regions are distinct. You don't see road rash type abrasions on the abrasions over this side. It's actually a very smooth contact. Whatever it hits, very smooth. That's where his head and face is going on the hood. So that's how I connect all of that together.
You spoke about injuries to Mark's head and injuries to his legs, correct?
Yes.
Are you able to tell, Doctor, which was hit first? Did he hit his head and then the legs were injured, or is it the other way around? Are you able to?
Yeah, I can answer that. It's the legs first. Yeah, well, back it up. So the injuries just in isolation don't tell you. Yeah, they just tell you in terms of how it was bent, or that there was a direct impact. You have to look at the context of the injuries. In the context of a pedestrian impact, the first thing that is hit is the lower extremities, whether it's the pelvis or the thighs or the lower legs, depending on the height of the person. And then the body tends to flex towards the hood. The timing of when that head contact occurs, if it occurs, because sometimes you don't get that, depending on the topography of the hood and the shoulder, will depend on the relative height of the subject struck and the vehicle. But it happens after the legs. The legs are always the first.
And you had like a schematic, I don't know what you'd call it, you had like a pictorial display with the vehicle kind of to show how you believe the body was hit. Do you recall that?
I think I know the one you're talking
Yeah.
about. There's some dimensions and...
You had kind of a, it was like a picture you'd put together. And you had said, and in that picture it shows Mark's legs being hit by it looked like it was the right front of the Mercedes. Do I have that right?
No, Jacob would be the right front, and Mark would be the center line, essentially, of the vehicle.
One moment. Sorry, I thought I had it handy, but I don't. That's okay. It's all right. So, in the picture, it shows the legs being hit, looks like. And then if the legs were hit first, that would be consistent with that picture, right? It's like at the edge of the vehicle and the legs are being hit, is that right?
Yeah, they're just dimensions. They weren't...
Okay.
Yeah, I basically showed an alignment of body regions to the front profile of the vehicle, and that shows how the leading edge of the vehicle is aligned essentially with the thigh and the legs, first contact.
And what I was trying to figure out is whether you believe that the injury to the head with the vehicle was on the hood of the vehicle. So he hit the legs and then the head was on the hood of the vehicle?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a kind of classic pedestrian movement.
Okay. When you were talking about Jacob, you were referring to the right lower extremity, the abrasion, that you said was kind of a unique abrasion. You remember that?
Yes.
Yes. And I wrote down in my notes, you said that it was very dark right there, and it almost looked like black transfer. Do you recall that?
I do.
What did you mean by black transfer?
Well, I'm not sure it is black transfer, but it's a unique abrasion from my point of view in that it appears like a higher velocity friction mark. And if you zoom in on it, it looks to me like it's actually skin. If you, for example, if you have synthetic fibers, this happens on seatbelts, if you put a friction force into it, you slide it over the ding really fast, it'll actually, the friction force, it heats up. Anyone who's slid on their knees on the carpets knows what I'm talking about. It can heat up to the point where it will burn a little bit on the fibers. So you know, it's possible, and I would defer though to the medical examiner on this, they saw it firsthand. But when you pull skin like that, it's possible to pull it fast enough to where you could have heat develop. The significance of that, I don't know that I can clarify where that came from, but that's what I thought that was unique. You don't
So-
see that unmarked, is my point.
So are you saying then that the area could have heated up to the point that whatever it was making contact with, it was picking up transfer from?
No, I'm saying that the transfer may not be transfer, it's actually skin that's black.
Okay.
Whatever is in contact with it is moving across it at such a high speed that the friction is doing that.
And
For
then-
example, a tire that's next to the lake
And
or the ground. But the tire will be a much higher velocity against the skin.
the word transfer, does that, are you suggesting that there is something that's external to the body that is coming onto the body?
Yes,
Yeah.
but again, I cannot say that that is transfer. I don't want to be clear, I'm not saying that. It looks from gross, when you first look at it, it looks like some black transfer is what I was describing it as. But if you zoom in, I'm not sure that that's what that is. And at that point, I would defer to the medical examiners to what they saw in person. Is that skin that's burnt from friction? Or is that a material transfer? I don't know.
And so if it were a material transfer, one of the options that you suggested was maybe it could have been like from a tire. Is that what you're saying?
His right lower leg is going to be in very close proximity to the right front tire of her vehicle. You saw the damage. It's pushing everything back into that tire. The trim looks to me like it contacted the tire. That's where his leg is. I cannot say conclusively that it contacted that. I would want some, you know, if there was transfer, I would want that probably tested, but that's where his leg is.
And another option would be if it heated up and ran it next to a black vehicle, portions of the black vehicle?
Yeah, I can't say for sure on that. Again, when I zoom in, to me, it looks like skin. That's turned black from the friction.
And again, you haven't tested any?
I haven't, no, I would defer.
Understood. Those are all the questions I have, Doctor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Any of your questions?
Could I do 3 minutes and be done? The only thing is, I need to have a 30-second sidebar. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
think you might know why. Sir, counsel has asked you questions about your access to the evidence. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
All of your access to the evidence was controlled by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that the Sheriff's Department was trying to maintain the custody chain for every piece of evidence for another matter relating to this case?
I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
don't
all.
tell me.
Objection Foundation.
Overrule.
In other words, the sheriffs, they didn't have anything to do with this case. As far as the evidence, don't just,
Yes,
yes or
sir.
no?
Yes, that's correct.
And the sheriffs had an obligation to maintain all of that evidence in its pristine form for another matter relating to this, correct?
That's correct.
So you couldn't do anything without sheriff's permission.
That's correct.
And there were other people at the inspection besides the sheriffs, weren't there?
Yes, there were.
And Dr. Peter Grossman, one of the defendants, was present at the inspection, wasn't he?
Beyond the scope.
Overrule.
I've never met, if he was, I'm not aware.
Look at that picture, what is it? We'll come back to that. Do you know whether the Mrs. Grossman and Dr. Grossman have any biomechanical engineer in this case?
Objection relevance.
Overrule.
Beyond the scope.
Overrule.
I'm not aware that they do.
Are you over anyone in this case? I'll withdraw that question. All parties in this case, to your knowledge, had access to the evidence.
Yes, from what I know.
All those questions that Ms. Tom asked you, did that change any of your opinions in this case, that it was Rebecca Grossman's Mercedes-Benz AMG that struck and killed both the boys?
No.
Whether they had this injury, that injury, as she was questioning about, it doesn't matter because they were both killed from the injuries they suffered when struck by Mrs. Grossman's Mercedes AMG. Is that your opinion?
Yes.
I had other questions, I can't find them, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're excused. Thank you. You're excused.
Question.
Oh, there were questions.
Okay.
Okay. All right, two questions. First, is it possible that the skateboard and roller skates were run over by Miss Grossman's vehicle since she kept driving and didn't stop right away, and that's how the skateboard and rollerblade broke?
I can't say is the short answer. There was an accident reconstructionist involved in the case that may be in a better position to answer whether a vehicle ran over those. So yeah, but I can't answer that.
Okay. Is it typical to see these types of skull injuries with the presence of a helmet with Mark and Jacob?
Yes, good question. So yes, is the short answer. Number one, with Mark, a facial blow happens when you wear a helmet. So that wearing a helmet doesn't exclude that. Number two, basilar skull fractures actually do occur in helmeted people. And it's actually been the subject of a number of papers going back to the 90s when they found a large number of basilar skull fractures in a large reconstruction government sponsored here in LA. It's a magnitude of the impact issue. In terms of exposure to the impact area, you know, the left side where I have Mark's head, that's where a helmet would be. I can't tell you when the helmet came off. I would like to have seen the helmet, but the helmet doesn't show a lot of impact damage what I saw in the pictures. I saw some shell damage to it, but I didn't see any large deformation of the EPS, but it was a rather poor photograph. So, short answer is I would like to have seen the helmet. I didn't get to. Helmets do come off, people. If you don't wear the chin strap, the helmet's coming off almost immediately. And I would expect it to likely come off even before the head reaches the hood in a case like this. I don't know if it was strapped or not. So, it's a good question.
Any other questions? All right, you're excused. Thank you. Do not talk about the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. We'll see you back here at 1:30.